Some memories never fade. They have fur, bright eyes, and the gift of loving us without saying a word. Because every dog carries a story, and maybe a part of yours. Get ready to discover more than a breed. Discover a lifelong companion.
In the ancestral mists of ancient China over 3,000 years ago, the cold wind from the mountains of northern China carried more than just the aroma of cherry blossoms and temple incense. It carried legends, it carried mysteries, and among these mysteries none was as fascinating as the origin of a creature that would come to be known as Song Shi, the puffy lion dog. It was the year 1000 BC during the Zhou dynasty when young Buddhist monk Wei Lin walked along the rocky trails leading to the monastery of eternal clouds. His bare feet knew every stone of that path, every curve that serpentined through the bamboo-covered mountains. But that morning, something different awaited him. A low, melancholic howl echoed among the millennial trees. It wasn't the sound of a common wolf. It was something deeper, more ancestral. Wei Lin stopped, his heart racing within his chest. His masters had always taught him that the mountains guarded ancient secrets, creatures that existed on the border between the physical and spiritual worlds. Following the origin of the sound, the monk encountered a vision that would change not only his life, but the destiny of an entire race. Among the shadows of a grove of giant bamboos, a magnificent creature watched him. It had the bearing of a small bear, but the gracefulness of a feline. Its coat was dense like snow from the highest mountains, with golden tones that shone under the sun rays penetrating through the leaves. But what most impressed Wei Lin was when the creature opened its mouth, panting from running. Its tongue was a deep blue like the night sky sprinkled with stars. The monk had never seen anything like it. It was as if the gods themselves had painted that tongue with celestial ink. "Are you a messenger from the heavens?" whispered Wei Lin, approaching slowly with his palms open as a sign of peace. The creature didn't flee. Instead, it inclined its head majestically, as if it understood every word. Its almond-shaped eyes, deep like wells of ancestral wisdom, seemed to guard secrets of 1,000 past lives. Wei Lin extended his hand, and to his surprise, the creature approached. When his fingers touched the dense coat, a sensation of warmth and protection enveloped him. It was like touching a fragment of paradise itself. In that moment, a legend began to be born. When Wei Lin arrived at the monastery of eternal clouds with his new companion, the older monks were speechless. Master Huang, a 90-year-old man whose white hair contrasted with his eyes still bright with curiosity, examined the creature with reverence. "This is not a common creature," murmured the master, running his experienced hands over the animal's unique coat. "Observe the bone structure, the musculature, and this blue tongue. I've never seen anything like this in all my years studying mountain creatures." The monks gathered in a circle, each offering their theories. Some believed the creature was a spiritual guardian sent by ancestors to protect the monastery. Others thought it could be a new manifestation of the celestial dragon, taking a more accessible form for mortals. But it was young monk Chen, known for his passion for ancient scrolls and traditional Chinese medicine studies, who offered the most intriguing theory. "Masters," he said, unrolling a scroll yellowed by time, "I found references in ancient texts about creatures with blue tongues. According to traditional medicine, the blue color in the tongue indicates a unique balance between yin and yang, a perfect harmony between the body's cold and hot energies." Master Huang raised an eyebrow, intrigued. "Continue, young Chen." "More than that," Chen continued, his eyes shining with the excitement of discovery. "The texts suggest that creatures with this characteristic possess exceptional longevity and natural resistance to diseases. They are considered carriers of pure qi." The animal, as if understanding the conversation, lay gracefully in the center of the circle, its blue tongue slightly visible as it panted peacefully. Its eyes observed each monk with almost human intelligence. It was at that moment that Master Huang made a decision that would echo through the centuries. "This creature did not arrive here by chance," he declared solemnly. "The gods have sent us a gift. We shall call it Song Shi, the lion dog, for its majestic appearance and noble nature, and it will be our responsibility to understand its origin and protect its lineage." The first studies. In the month that followed, the monastery of eternal clouds transformed into a center of studies like never before. Monks from neighboring monasteries came from afar to observe Song Shi and document its unique characteristics. Monk Chen, now designated as the creature's primary caretaker and scholar, kept detailed records of everything. Each day he noted on silk scrolls, 10th day of the new moon, Song Shi demonstrates exceptional intelligence. Today, when I was preparing for morning meditation, he brought my rosary that I had forgotten in the garden. How could he know the importance of that object for my spiritual practice? 20th day, His coat seems to change with the seasons. During colder days, it becomes denser, as if his body naturally adapts to climatic conditions. I have never observed such adaptation in other creatures. 30th day. The blue tongue continues to be a fascinating mystery. I consulted the oldest medical texts in the monastery. I found a reference suggesting that the blue coloration may be related to a unique concentration of minerals in the blood, possibly linked to the high mountain diet or an ancestral genetic mutation. But Song Shi was more than a study object. He quickly became an integral part of monastery life. During morning prayers, he sat silently beside the monks, as if participating in collective meditation. During garden work, he followed the monks, offering his comforting presence. And there was something more. Song Shi possessed an almost supernatural ability to detect danger. On 3 different occasions, he alerted monks about incoming storms, hours before any visible sign appeared on the horizon. On another occasion, his agitated behavior led to the discovery of a dangerous crack in the floor of one of the monastery halls, avoiding what could have been a fatal accident. Song Shi's fame soon spread beyond the monastery walls. Merchants passing through the region carried stories about the dog with a sapphire tongue to distant cities. Poets composed verses about his majestic beauty. Artists traveled for days just to try to capture his essence in paintings. Thus, in the autumn of the 3rd year after Song Shi's discovery, an imperial retinue arrived at the gates of the Monastery of Eternal Clouds. Emperor Wu of the Zhou dynasty was known both for his wisdom and his passion for exotic creatures and rare objects. When he learned of Song Shi's existence through his advisors, he couldn't resist the curiosity to personally see that legendary creature. The arrival of the imperial retinue was an event like the monastery had never witnessed. Hundreds of soldiers in golden armor, courtiers in colored silks and ornate carriages filled the tranquil valley where the monastery had existed in peace for centuries. Master Huang, despite his 93 years, received the emperor with the dignity the occasion required. Song Shi, as always perceptive to changes in his environment, remained close to his caretaker Chen, observing the visitors with his intelligent eyes. When Emperor Wu finally laid eyes on Song Shi, his expression changed instantly. The most powerful man in China fell silent for long minutes, simply contemplating the magnificent creature. "This," finally said the emperor, his voice laden with reverence, "is truly a creature of the gods. I have never seen such a combination of strength and elegance, of wildness and serenity." When Song Shi approached the emperor and inclined his head respectfully, showing his characteristic blue tongue, Wu felt he was in the presence of something truly sacred. "Master Huang," said the emperor, "this creature is a national treasure. I must take it to the imperial court where it can receive the care and veneration it deserves." Master Huang's heart tightened. He knew he couldn't deny an imperial request, but Song Shi had become more than a pet. He was part of the monastery's soul. "Majesty," the master responded carefully, "Song Shi is truly a gift from the heavens, but would you allow us to make a request?" The emperor, curious, nodded. "If Song Shi must go to the imperial court, we ask that monk Chen be allowed to accompany him. He has studied the creature since its discovery and knows better than anyone its needs and unique characteristics." Wu considered the request. It was uncommon for an emperor to accept a monk's presence at court, but he recognized the wisdom of the suggestion. "So be it," he declared. "Monk Chen shall be named Imperial Guardian of the sacred creature, and I order that other similar creatures be brought if they exist, so we can better understand this magnificent race." The transition to the Forbidden City was smoother than Chen had imagined. Song Shi, with his characteristic adaptability, soon got used to the new luxurious environments. He was installed in special quarters in the Imperial Gardens, with access to open areas for exercise and contemplation. But most notable was how Song Shi quickly won over not only the emperor, but the entire court. His majestic presence and noble behavior impressed even the most skeptical courtiers. During imperial audiences, Song Shi remained beside the throne like a silent but vigilant guardian. Chen, now with access to the vast imperial library, could deepen his studies on Song Shi's unique characteristics. It was in the imperial archives that he made discoveries that would change his understanding of the creature's origin. In a particularly ancient scroll dating over 1,000 years earlier, Chen found references to blue-tongued dogs in northern China regions, specifically in areas near Mongolia and Siberia. The text suggested these creatures were considered sacred by the region's nomadic peoples, who used them not only as companions but as spiritual guardians. Even more intriguing, the scroll mentioned that the blue-tongued dogs possessed exceptional resistance to extreme cold and longevity that surpassed other similar creatures. They were described as bridges between the world of mortals and the realm of ancestral spirits. Chen shared these discoveries with Emperor Wu, who became even more fascinated. Wu immediately ordered expeditions to be sent to the northern regions to search for other creatures similar to Song Shi. The first expedition returned after 6 months with extraordinary news. In Mongolia's frozen steppes, the explorers found a small nomadic tribe that had been raising creatures identical to Song Shi for countless generations. The tribe's leader, an elderly man named Batbayar, received the Imperial emissaries with a mixture of curiosity and caution. When he learned of their visit's purpose, his eyes lit up with recognition. "Ah, you speak of the dogs of the frozen wind," said Batbayar in his dialect, translated by one of the explorers who had learned the local language. "They have been our companions for more generations than our memories can count. Our ancestors say these dogs descend from the sacred mountain wolves themselves, but were touched by the spirits of eternal winds, gaining the blue tongue as a sign of their special nature." Batbayar led the explorers to see his breeding. In the camp, about a dozen creatures identical to Song Shi ran freely, playing with the tribe's children and guarding the yak herds. "They are more than animals," Batbayar explained. "They are family members. They protect our children from wolves, alert us about storms, and some say they can even predict earthquakes days before they happen. Their blue tongues are signs of their spiritual purity." The expedition leader, impressed with what he saw, carefully negotiated with Batbayar. He didn't want to simply take the creatures. He recognized they were an integral part of the tribe's culture. Finally, they reached an agreement. The tribe would provide some of their dogs in exchange for Imperial protection and access to trade routes that would benefit the entire community. When the expedition returned to the Forbidden City, bringing 6 new specimens of Song Shi's race, the excitement at court was palpable. Chen was moved to see that Song Shi was not an isolated case, but part of an ancestral lineage that had survived in northern China's most adverse conditions. The newcomers were installed in the Imperial gardens alongside Song Shi. The reunion was touching. The creatures recognized each other immediately, as if they were family, long separated. Song Shi, who had been the only one of his kind for years, finally had company from his own peers. Chen took the opportunity to study the similarities and differences between specimens. He discovered that all shared the same unique characteristics: the deep blue tongue, dense coat adaptable to temperature changes, exceptional intelligence, and a robust physical structure that combined strength and elegance. But it was during these comparative studies that Chen made his most significant discovery. Carefully examining the creature's bone and muscle structure, he realized their characteristics weren't simply the result of environmental adaptation. They seemed to be the result of a very specific and ancient genetic lineage. Chen formulated a revolutionary theory for his time. These dogs weren't simply a variation of common dogs. They were the result of thousands of years of evolution in relative isolation, developing unique characteristics that fundamentally differentiated them from other canine races. One night, while observing Song Shi and his companions resting under the full moon's light, Chen had an epiphany. The puzzle pieces finally fit together in his mind. "They are not descendants of common wolves," he murmured to himself, writing feverishly on a new scroll. "They are descendants of a much older lineage, possibly from mountain wolves that existed before the great human migrations." Chen developed his theory. Thousands of years ago, when Earth's climate was different and northern China's mountains were even more isolated, a specific population of wolves developed unique characteristics to survive extreme conditions. The blue tongue could be the result of a genetic mutation that offered specific advantages, perhaps better temperature regulation or greater efficiency in blood circulation at high altitudes. Over time, these ancestral wolves were gradually domesticated by the region's first nomadic peoples. But unlike other dog breeds that spread and mixed widely, this lineage remained relatively isolated, preserving its unique primitive characteristics. Song Shi and his peers, wrote Chen in his diary, are living windows to the ancestral past. They carry in their genes the history of thousands of years of evolution and adaptation. They are truly living treasures. Impressed with Chen's theories and increasingly fascinated by the unique breed, Emperor Wu decided to establish Chinese history's first imperial breeding program. He designated an entire area of the Imperial Gardens for the breeding and study of the blue-tongued dogs, as they had begun to be known at court. Chen was named Master of Imperial Breeding, a position created specifically for him. Under his careful supervision, the dogs began to reproduce, always with meticulous attention to the characteristics that made them unique. The first litters were born in the spring of the 5th year after Song Shi's discovery. Chen was moved to see that all puppies were born with the characteristic blue tongue, confirming it was a dominant and stable genetic trait. "It is a miracle of nature," wrote Chen in his records. "The blue tongue is not just an anomaly, it is a consistent hereditary trait. This confirms my theory that we are dealing with a genetically distinct lineage." Each puppy was meticulously registered with details about their parents, physical characteristics, and behavior. Chen was unknowingly creating history's first canine genealogical records. As the blue-tongued dogs became better known at the imperial court, their influence began to extend to Chinese culture as a whole. Poets composed verses about their majestic beauty and noble nature. Artists portrayed them in paintings that decorated palaces and temples. One of the era's most famous poems, written by court poet Li Wei, said, "With tongue blue like the night sky and coat golden like autumn sun, walk the four-legged guardians, bearers of ancestral wisdom. In their eyes, the mountain's depth; in their bearing, dragon's majesty. They are bridges between two worlds, terrestrial in form, celestial in essence." The blue-tongued dogs also began to be associated with good luck and prosperity. Court nobles began asking the emperor for permission to have their own specimens, considering them symbols of status and spiritual protection. But not everything was rosy in the blue-tongued dog's paradise. In the 7th year after their discovery, a mysterious disease began affecting some specimens in the imperial breeding. Chen observed with horror as 3 dogs developed strange lethargy, loss of appetite, and a dimming in eyes that once shone with intelligence. 2 of them didn't survive the disease, leaving Chen and the entire court in mourning. The precious dog's death was seen as a bad omen by some superstitious courtiers. Rumors arose that the gods were displeased with domesticating such sacred creatures. Others suggested the disease resulted from keeping dogs away from their natural habitat. Chen, devastated but determined, plunged into intensive studies to understand the disease's cause. He consulted imperial physicians, examined diet and care records, and even sent messengers to the original Mongol tribe to ask if they had faced similar problems. The tribe's response was revealing. Batbuyer explained that occasionally, some of their dogs developed a similar condition, especially when kept too long away from the high mountains where they were born. The dogs of the frozen wind need the mountain's energy, Batbuyer explained through messengers. It's as if their souls were connected to the land they came from. When they stay away too long, they wither like flowers, uprooted from their soil. With this information, Chen developed an innovative solution. He proposed to the emperor that they establish auxiliary breeding facilities in mountainous regions near the capital, where dogs could spend regular periods in environments closer to their natural habitat. The emperor, not wanting to lose his precious companions, immediately approved the proposal. Complexes were built in the mountains, connected to the capital by safe roads, where dogs could renew their spiritual energies. As Chen diplomatically explained, the strategy worked. Dogs that began dividing their time between the imperial court and mountain facilities recovered their vitality and no longer showed signs of the mysterious disease. This experience taught Chen a valuable lesson about the importance of respecting animals' natural needs, even when domesticated. He incorporated this knowledge into his breeding methods, establishing principles that would be followed by future generations of breeders. With the imperial breeding success and the health crisis resolution, the blue-tongued dog's reputation spread far beyond China's borders. Silk Road merchants carried stories about these extraordinary creatures to distant lands. Ambassadors from neighboring kingdoms began arriving at the imperial court, not only for diplomatic business, but also hoping to obtain one of the legendary dogs. The emperor, recognizing the diplomatic value of his living treasures, occasionally gifted important allies with carefully selected specimens. Thus, blue-tongued dogs reached Japan, Korea, and even Central Asian regions. In each new territory, they adapted with their characteristic versatility, but always maintaining their distinctive characteristics. Song Shi, the first of the breed discovered by monk Wei Lin, lived to the extraordinary age of 18, exceptional longevity for dogs of his era. During his final years, he became almost a legendary figure at the imperial court, venerated not just as a pet, but as a living symbol of harmony between the natural and human worlds. When Song Shi finally departed to the realm of ancestors, his death was mourned like that of a great sage. Chen, now an elderly man, wrote in his final diary about Song Shi, "Today, my dear friend and teacher of so many years closed his almond eyes for the last time. But his lineage continues, strong and pure, carrying in each descendant the ancestral wisdom he represented. Song Shi was not just a dog, he was a bridge between worlds, a guardian of ancient secrets, a companion who taught us all about loyalty, dignity, and the beauty of life, lived in harmony with our natural purposes." Throughout the centuries that followed, Song Shi's descendants continued to evolve and adapt. Careful breeders maintained the breed's essential characteristics while refining specific aspects of temperament and appearance. The blue tongue remained as the breed's trademark, but breeders began noticing subtle variations in tones, from blue-gray to deep blue-violet. Each variation was considered special and had its own symbolic associations in Chinese culture. The coat also diversified in colors, from Song Shi's original gold to shades of red, black, blue, cream, and cinnamon, but it always maintained its characteristic density and unique texture, adapted for protection against climatic extremes. If Chen could see the future, he would be amazed to discover that his theories about the blue-tongued dog's unique genetic origin would be confirmed by modern science. Millennia after his death. DNA studies revealed that the breed he helped preserve was, in fact, one of the canine lineages genetically closest to ancestral wolves. The blue tongue, which so fascinated Chen and the emperors he served, would eventually be explained as the result of an exceptional concentration of pigment cells containing melanin in a unique genetic configuration. Not just an aesthetic curiosity, but an indicator of a distinctly ancient and pure genetic lineage. Modern studies would also confirm Chen's other observations: the breed's exceptional longevity, resistance to certain diseases, and adaptability to different climates, all characteristics that can be traced back to their origins in the frozen mountains of northern Asia. Today, 3,000 years after Song Shi's discovery by monk Wei Lin, his descendants are known worldwide as Chow Chows. The name may have changed, derived from the Chinese word chu, meaning food, due to a historical misunderstanding, or possibly from Chow Chow, a pidgin word meaning trinkets used by English merchants. But despite name changes and adaptations to the modern world, Chow Chows maintain the essential characteristics that made Song Shi so special: the unmistakable blue tongue, dense and majestic coat, noble and distinct bearing, and that deep, observant intelligence that impressed the first monks so many centuries ago. More than a canine breed, Chow Chows carry with them a spiritual heritage that transcends their physical appearance. They are descendants of a lineage considered sacred that lived in monasteries, accompanied emperors, and crossed millennia, maintaining their unique essence. Each modern Chow Chow carries in their genes not only Song Shi's physical characteristics, but also the ancestral memory of their role as spiritual guardian, loyal companion, and bridge between the natural and human worlds. When a modern Chow Chow inclines their head majestically, observing the world with their deep almond eyes, it echoes through time Song Shi's gesture on that first morning when he met monk Wei Lin on the mountain trail. When they open their mouth and reveal the characteristic blue tongue, they demonstrate the continuity of a lineage that survived empires, wars, climate changes, and the passage of 3 millennia. The Chow Chow's story is more than the story of a dog breed. It is the story of the relationship between humans and animals at its deepest and most meaningful level. It's about recognizing the sacred in the everyday, about preserving what is unique and precious, about the responsibility that comes with being guardian of something greater than ourselves. Song Shi, the first Chow Chow known to history, was not just a dog. He was a teacher, a companion, a living symbol that nature still guards mysteries and wonders for those who know how to observe with eyes of admiration and reverence. And today, 3,000 years later, when we see a Chow Chow walking with their characteristic dignity, their dense coat shining in the sun, and their blue tongue occasionally visible, we are seeing not just a pet, but a living fragment of ancestral history, a direct descendant of those creatures considered gifts from the gods. The legend continues, the blue tongue remains, and the mystery of Chow Chows born in the mists of Chinese mountains 3 millennia ago continues to fascinate and enchant all those who have the privilege of knowing these extraordinary creatures. In the quietude of their almond eyes, we can still glimpse the ancestral wisdom Song Shi carried. In their unwavering loyalty, we find the reflection of that first connection between Wei Lin and the mysterious creature that would change the course of canine history. Modern Chow Chows are, in essence, bearers of an ancestral flame that never went out. Each time one of them lies majestically in the sun, as Song Shi did in the monastery gardens, they continue the millennial tradition of being a bridge between worlds, the physical and spiritual, wild and domesticated, ancestral past and ever-evolving future. And so the legend of the blue-tongued dog continues to be written, not on silk scrolls or imperial archives, but in the daily life of each Chow Chow walking the earth, carrying with them Song Shi's genetic memory and the promise that some mysteries are too precious to be completely unraveled. The blue tongue continues to be their celestial signature, a reminder that, in a world becoming increasingly common, there still exist creatures that carry within themselves a piece of the extraordinary. And perhaps that is exactly what the gods intended when, 3,000 years ago, they allowed a young monk to encounter a magical creature on a trail in the mountains of ancient China.